Hello everyone, welcome to Code and Learn. So in our last tutorial, we implement the server-side stream. Continuing from there, in this video, we are going to look at client-side stream. First, let us just recap what a client-side stream is. Similar to a server-side stream, in the client-side stream, the client is able to send multiple messages one by one via the stream, and once the stream is ended by the client, the server can process the stream of data and send the response. So basically, you are able to send multiple messages from the client to server via the stream. First, let us add this method to the Proto definition. I'm just going to say Client Side Stream RPC. For the client side stream, we will use update news. That is, the RPC method for updating the news will be a client side stream. Similar to what we did with the server side stream, we will use stream. Let's just use create request for it. Ideally, in a production application, you would have a different request, which will only allow only a few fields to be updated. But in this tutorial, our concentration is on the gRPC framework. So I don't care much about what we are updating because our main aim is to understand the gRPC framework. Protobuf, empty response. Let's now generate the Go code. With that, we should have the new code generated. So as you can see, we now have the update news gRPC framework code generated, which uses a client-side stream. Now let's go to the gRPC server to add this method. First, I'm going to add a store method for updating the news. Update, which will accept a news, that is memstore.news, and return the memstore.news. Now let's add a method to the server func as server. So the method should be update news, because we want to override this implementation. Update news. The first argument is a stream or the client-side stream. News API v1 or news v1 dot news service update news server, which is a stream. Returns the error. I will just do return null for now. So this allows us to consume the stream from the client. To consume the stream, we are using an infinite for loop. This is similar to what we did on the client side when consuming the stream from the server. Inside the for loop, I'm going to say request error. Then on the stream, we will have the method receive. This should not be a pointer. So now we have the request and the error from the stream. First thing we do is check for the error. That is, if error is equal to end of file, that is, no new request is here on the stream, we will just return an empty message. That is, there's no more request to be processed via the stream. For that, we will use stream send and close. That is, we are closing the client stream and we are responding with the empty message, and that's it. If error is not equal to null, that is, it is a legitimate error, we will return error. Now is the case for when there's a request or a news that we want to update. So we will say updated news. First thing we do is parse and validate the incoming request. If error not is equal to null, we can return early to say return status.error f quotes.invalid argument and then validation failed and provide the error. Otherwise, we will just update the news as .store.update news. We can remove the return null because everything will be handled inside the infinite for loop. Actually, we can update the interface here to not return anything because we are not sending anything back. So that's it for the server-side implementation of the client-side stream. Now, one thing we need to do is update our memstore to implement the update news method that we defined in the server interface, that is news storer. So I can just use this. Here I can do func as store update news. This doesn't need to be memstore. So inside it, I will just require the lock, and then defer unlock it. Since we are updating the news or we are writing to the slice, we need a write log for idx news range s.news. If id is equal to news.id and news is not soft related, we will replace the existing news with the new news. I will just say update news or updated news, and here we will just say updated news.id is equal to news id, and news has not been deleted. We will update the news in the slice and return early. So that's it. With that, everything should be set up for us to implement the client-side streaming. So let's go back to the client and use the client stream to update it. Let me remove this log statement from here. After getting the get response or get all response, let us iterate through all the news, all news that we get from get all need to range here, and then underscore error client dot update news, pass the context, which should give us a stream. This needs to be a client stream. If error is not is equal to nil, log dot fatalf update news stream, then log the error. Otherwise we have the stream, so we can use it to send the news request or multiple news requests. So I will say client stream dot send. So we are going to use the send method, and we will do n or news v1 dot create request. ID will be n.id. Similarly, we can use the other fields that we have. So let's just fill them in. Author, n.author, title, n.title, tags, n.tags. What else? Summary, content, source. Summary, n.summary, content, n.content, and source, n.source. Just to differentiate between the updated and the previous news or previous news request, we can add fmt printf author and just say updated, then the number, which will be the index. Let's say I here, and use this. So that's it. Here we need to assign the error. If error is not equal to nil, again log dot fatalf update news send, log the error with v. So the next thing we need to do is close the stream once we are done sending all the data, which we need to do once we exit the for loop or this for loop. So we need to access the client stream outside the for loop. For that, I will just create a variable client stream and assign it here. Then in the end, now we have access to the client stream. We will call the method close and receive, which should send the empty response and an error. If there's error, we will do log.fatalf client stream close error, and that's it. So on the client side, first we are accessing the stream from update news method. Using that client stream, we are sending multiple update requests. Once we are done, we call close and receive to indicate that we are closing the stream from our end, and server should respond with their message. Now let's test it. Go run server. That's working. On the other end, let's run the client. So that is working without any error, but we are not seeing anything. That is because after updating the news, we are not fetching them. So I'm just going to copy this to fetch all the news from the getAll method. So let's do that. This is not required because we are already initializing it. This is not required as well. And in the end, let's just do log.print updated news, all news. Let's try again, clear the console. It's appending to our already existing slice, so we see a lot of messages. What I'm going to do here is create a new slice. That is updated news, make, or just copy this from here and rename it to updated news. Update here, updated news. Now let's try again, clear the console. So if you look at the response, and if I pick up any of the author, you will see it has not been updated. That is actually because here we need to set it to updated news. Once that is done, let us restart our server and try again with the client, clear the console. And as you can see, news has been updated successfully. So basically we are updating all the news in one go using the client side stream. So let us revise what we did. First, we updated the Proto definition for the service, setting up a RPC for client side stream. So in the request, we are using the keyword stream. Then we generated the code, and on the server side, we implemented the update news method, which receives from the stream and processes each request as it's getting the request. Once all the request has been received, it uses the send and close method on the stream to send an empty response. On the client side, things were very similar to what we did on the server side for server side stream. In here, we first initialized a client stream. Then we went over all the news that we fetch from getAll. Inside the loop, we use the client stream, assign it to the client stream we get from update news. And then using the stream, we use the send method on it to send the news request. Once we iterate through all the news, that is, we are done with all the news that we wanted to send an update, we use the close and receive on the client stream to indicate to the server that we are done sending data on the client stream. After which, we just use the getAll method or the getAll RPC method, which is a server side stream, to fetch all the news to verify the news has been updated successfully, which we did. So in this project, I'm using it just to update the news. But in real life, the client-side stream could be used for batch processing, where the client sends the data in batches to the server to be processed in the received batches. Or it could also be used to upload a large chunk of data. For example, if the client was sending an image, it could use the client-side stream to send small pieces of that image data via the stream. So that is how the client-side stream is useful with the gRPC framework. That's it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please post a comment under the video or reach out to our Discord server. Until next time, happy coding.